Okay, it is 5 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to, before we do roll, announce that there is a second Kyle Sproul on our on the meeting tonight, and that's for the purposes of the executive session, so you can just disregard that. But I'm going to go ahead and start with roll call. We'll start with Tracy.
Here.
And Wendy.
Here.
Kathy Decker. Kathy Decker. She's just on.
I am here.
Great, excellent. Perfect. We can get started. Excuse me. Okay, our first item on the agenda is our Employee Excellence Awards, which we are excited to have back on the agenda. We have 3 of the attendees tonight, possibly 4. It's time to recognize the February 2021 Employee Excellence Award recipients. These 5 employees were selected by a committee of their peers for exceptional commitment to the students and staff of Vancouver Public Schools. It's my pleasure to congratulate the following people, and they are on tonight, and I just wanted to recognize them. But Dean Dickinson first. He's teacher at Fort Vancouver High School Center for International Studies, hired in 2013. Dean has offered his photography students exciting opportunities to apply their skills in and beyond their school. Last year, his photography students collaborated with other Fort students to take part in local shows and other creative opportunities. And I see Dean just joined us, so maybe give us a wave. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, a good applause. Especially during such hard times. Thank you for motivating your students. Second up, we have Jessie Howard, who is possibly here, but I'm not sure. Jessie is a help desk specialist in Information and Technology Services Department. She was hired in December of 2013. Jessie plays a pivotal role district-wide in hardware replacement and annual updates on tens of thousands of computers. Those who work closely with him say that he maintains a friendly attitude and can always be counted on as a resource. Obviously, in the year we've had, this has been critical for IT support, so thank you very much, Jessie. Carrie Knight, a teacher at Minnehaha Elementary. I believe she's here. She was hired in September of 2018. Since joining Minnehaha 2 years ago, Carrie Knight has made deep connections with staff and colleagues and her students and families. Carrie shows levels of dedication and passion that are rare to sustain, yet she persists, nurturing relationships built on support and trust. Thank you, Carrie. Jeannie Lane, Senior Application Specialist, Information and Technology Services Department, hired in August of 2008. Jeannie Lane brings a wealth of strengths to her role in the Information and Technology Services. Jeannie is a go-to person for effective solutions, has an extensive understanding of complex systems, deep institutional knowledge, and a collaborative attitude. Lastly, we have Lee Thomas, who might also be here with us. Not on my screen, but she's with us. Thank you, Lee. Lee is a math specialist at Discovery Middle School, hired in September 2005. In her former role as a teacher on special assignment in the Curriculum and Instruction Department, Lee supported math teachers all over the district, thinking deeply and critically about how to best enhance the learning to meet students' needs. Her colleagues said that this national board certified teacher helped them elevate their own thinking too. Wow, what a testament. Thank you all. Congratulations. A hard time to be in education, and thank you for stepping up. Next up on our agenda is our student board representative presentations. So we are going to have our student representatives go. First up, we have Columbia River, which is Riley Sharman and Maya Anson.
Hello, it's just me today, Riley.
Okay, Riley, great.
Good evening, Dr. Webb, members of the board. Oops, sorry. I'm gonna get myself at a full screen really quick. Okay. And then it's the next slide. Yeah, I think Skyview and River. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay. Good evening, Dr. Webb, members of the board, cabinet members, and community guests. My name is Riley Sharman, and I am from Columbia River High School. Our prompt this month was to answer the following question: how does your school build leadership qualities among all students? The first way that we see our school building leadership in our students is through clubs. Our school has many clubs, all of which are student-based and mostly led, organized, administrated through student effort. These clubs offer students a chance to develop in something extra at our school that they find an interest or passion in. Students are encouraged to join and create clubs in order to find a sense of leadership and purpose through an optional extracurricular activity that they enjoy. Next, we have our school's encouragement to tutor other students in several classes I took at River. Students who feel confident and have shown an understanding in one subject or another are encouraged to share their knowledge to other students and uplift them. I personally benefited from our school and staff's encouragement to tutor and be tutored. This is one of the best examples of leadership here at Columbia River. Columbia River wants to build a community to be inclusive and make it essential that student leaders are visible throughout our school. By developing trust and creating a sense of transparency with parents, staff, community members, and students, we can achieve this leadership. Student athletes are given the opportunity to be team captains among their sport. Captains play a vital role in organizing and building teamwork within a team, which actively promotes the school values at all times, especially by providing leadership to the student body and demonstrating the core values of their team. Captains are in charge of promoting their sport to students and motivating student athletes to challenge themselves. Lastly, our student-led government class allows students to have a voice in executive decisions within our school and an opportunity to voice their insight on what areas of improvement the school needs. As a student athlete and ASB officer, I can speak for both of these factors. I've witnessed a lot of growth within our community and school by student-led leadership, and I've benefited greatly from this. I appreciate your attention this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Riley. Next up from Fort Vancouver School of International Studies, we have Michaela Smith.
Hello. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Good evening, Dr. Webb, members of the board, cabinet members, and community guests. My name is Michaela Smith, and I'm from Fort Vancouver High School. Leadership is a pyramid of 5 levels. Starting at the base, level 1 is self-awareness, 2 is relationship, 3 is vision, 4 is strategy, and 5 is action. Each is as important as the last and builds off of each other. At Fort, these levels might be taught separately, but they come together to create leaders in every classroom. There are many opportunities within Fort to teach leadership skills. For example, our many magnet programs such as culinary arts and welding help students realize their potential and passions and create a confidence that allows them to speak out about their thoughts and opinions. Sports allow students to build friendships and reach out of their comfort zones. There are elected captains that set a precedent of action and behavior. These more vocal leaders are opportunities to inspire more introverted students to become leaders of action themselves. Our school as a whole has a vision of unity and diversity and inclusion. The more students embrace and understand our school-wide vision, the more comfortable they become speaking out and being themselves and begin to develop a vision for themselves, whether it's in sports or the classroom. Our clubs inspire action. Each club has an adult as an advisor, but they are student-led. There are elected presidents, vice presidents, secretaries, and treasurers. These executive members handle fundraising, meetings, and purchases for the club. Clubs such as NHS
Michaela, we lost you there.
Oh,
there you are.
Can you?
Great.
Okay, sorry. I'll just continue. Classes such as Yearbook and ASB are very student focused and connect most with strategy. It teaches students how to be proactive and about the intricacies of projects. Luckily, every class and activity at Fort can relate to one of the levels of leadership. I'm proud of my school for inspiring its students and creating lifelong learners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up from Hudson's Bay, we have Karen Gallegos.
Good afternoon, Dr. Webb, members of the board, cabinet members, and community guests. My name is Karen Gallegos, and I'm from Hudson's Bay High School. This month's prompt question was, how does your school build leadership qualities among all students? Our mission at Hudson's Bay High School is to create lifelong learners and responsible, compassionate little citizens by melding the resources of students, staff, parents, and community. Though with online learning being challenging and difficult, Hudson's Bay still focuses on a student's engagement and education. Hudson's Bay Bayway traits were developed to focus on and believing in our students and staffs on a daily basis. The traits values are community, ownership, critical thinking, and perseverance and empathy. With these traits, we work together to improve our school and community and take responsibility for our learning and behavior. We value having an open mind, curiosity, utilizing and to our resources to make informed decisions, and most importantly, we work to find a way when things get difficult and striving to find common grounds with others because kindness matters. Our school builds leadership qualities among all students by being inclusive and looking for opportunities to serve one another. We recently honored and aired a video to tribute of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his accomplishments and leadership. We included staffs, students, and Dr. King's work. We support personal, small group, and whole school growth in extracurriculars, athletics, and academics and social settings by outreaching to one another. Leadership is about combining efforts, and through this battle we've been waging. Together, we fight as one. Thank you.
Next up, we have Teddy Beavers from Skyview. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, sweet. Okay, good evening, Dr. Webb, members of the board, cabinet members, and community guests. My name is Teddy Beaver, and I'm from Skyview High School. I spoke with a number of students about this month's prompt on how and if our school successfully teaches leadership skills to its students. Here's the response I heard. Leadership is an extremely important skill to have throughout your life. Being a good leader in your own right can lead to many opportunities within a student's life. Seeing the importance of this skill, it's vital that our schools provide opportunities for students to grow them. However, before I start, it should be noted that a lot of these ways listed below are opportunities that really only get provided during in-person learning. Leadership really requires strong people and social skills, and therefore it can be a hard skill for a student to learn when not interacting with peers all day. That being said, when given the chance, Skyview helps grow leadership skills within students, both in and out of the classroom. From the moment you go to Skyview, the ideals of TIE are made clear. TIE stands for trust, integrity, and excellence. Modeling these words throughout the school is one way students are encouraged to be a leader. Within the classroom, there are leadership classes as well, such as, leadership and ASB. During certain breaks of time deemed storm time, there are often lessons taught that are set forth clear expectations of standards at Skyview. We also had a program called Storm 9, in which upperclassmen students were set with groups of freshmen and given the opportunity to help students along in their freshman year. Extracurriculars are also a prime time for students to grow leadership skills. Skyview provides athletics in which leadership skills can be taught and harnessed while competing in a sport. And the arts, such as drama, provide a great place for students to take on roles to help lead and organize events such as plays. Finally, there are clubs. Clubs can be student-run and organized, and therefore can be a great time for students to really excel in being a leader while being a part of something they have a passion for. Overall, Skyview does a pretty good job of creating leaders within their students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up from VSAA, we have Samantha Duncan.
Good evening, Dr. Webb, Members of the board, cabinet members, and community guests. My name is Sammy Duncan, and I am from VSAA. For this prompt, I wanted to make sure to get much student feedback, so I polled the entire VSAA student body on what they felt were some ways that they developed leadership qualities from classes to clubs at VSAA. One major way that students at VSAA are able to learn leadership skills, such as teamwork and responsibility, is simply the 6 through 12 atmosphere in classes. In art classes, for example, a mixture of all grades attend, giving older students an opportunity to showcase what they've learned throughout their years at VSAA and also be role models for newer and younger students. This also gives newer students a chance to kind of know the ropes and try new things when it comes to their art form or what they want to try at VSAA. This is also in the same vein as the buddy program. Because of the large range of grades at our school, we developed the buddy program, where 2 ASB members, or called the buddy chairs, pair up older students that volunteered with new students to kind of welcome them to VSAA, show them their classes, and all of that kind of stuff. This gives older students an opportunity to, again, take on the role model role, if you will, and also learn how to be welcoming to everybody and show kindness, because it's always important to reinforce and teach. And this also gives new students an inspiration to become older buddies when they're older students at VSAA. Another main way that VSAA students learn leadership is through clubs and extracurricular activities. We have a variety of clubs at VSAA, including middle school and high school dance committee, which through normal years would arrange socials and dances. We also have a school newspaper called Vita Brevis and a literary magazine called Lit Mag, where students of all grades and ages can showcase short stories, poems, or just, fiction stories of any kind. This is student run as well, run by a teacher as well. And so they all work together and have different positions to organize, accumulate, and present the magazines and newspapers to the entire student body. Along with clubs, there is also convocation, where students from different advocacies or the equivalent of homeroom can represent their advocacies and learn about what budget proposals are going on and just different events that are going on in the VSAA community. This is where representatives can go back to their advos, share what they've learned, and also be able to learn presentation skills and communication skills between the ASB and the rest of the school. And last but certainly not least, there is ASB, which I believe is one of the best things that I ever could enjoy. ASB is one of the most direct ways to learn leadership at VSAA, and I think in any school, because ASB officers is any grades, any students can apply to become ASB officers and be a part of serving the community that has given so much to VSAA students. Students of VSAA can learn leadership qualities in so many ways, because leadership is a crucial part of school and life in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have from Itech, Kira Navarro.
Hello. Good evening, Dr. Webb, members of the board, cabinet members, and community guests. My name is Kira Navarro, and I'm from Itech Preparatory. How does Itech build leadership qualities in all students? Well, for our school, we have many things. One is our ASB/leadership club. This gives students opportunity to build and learn more about leadership skills from our peers, even the kids around us that are in the clubs. I know for me, ASB has helped me understand the leadership role very much throughout the years with the many projects we do and the many things that we take on as ourselves to help our school become better. ASB has also helped me become a better leader as it has helped many other people. We now have our middle school and high school combined in one building. With having them combined, it allows younger grade levels to look up to older kids in a leadership way and influence each other to be better students. Since our school's main thing is project-based learning, having kids do projects by themselves or even in groups can show leadership skills by how they run their projects and improvise with each other, especially with Zoom. We have many projects that happen right now, even while we're in remote learning. This shows students how they can manage time and show leadership by just doing the projects at home, because we all know how hard it is, especially with remote learning as of right now. Having our Running Start program at Itech for grades 11 and 12th graders really show kids how to become young adults and understand the responsibility to take on as many classes on that level. And I know for right now, we just started talking about Running Start, and I know a lot of kids are really interested in that, to show growth and to have something normal in our routine that we had last year with our school. So I know a lot of kids are very excited to have that, to show growth and to start doing classes that can help you later on. And lastly, we started tutoring on Zoom Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. to give students help with any subject they need. This is run by students that have excelled in any of the topics and learns that we have at our school, and they help kids that need help with it. Because right now, a lot of kids need help with some things, and if they need an assignment that they do not understand, they can go and ask a student during these times that are maybe in the class or understand it, and they can get a better understanding about the topic or maybe project that they needed. So I know for a lot of kids that this has helped very much. Overall, Itech gives many ways on how to show leadership qualities on a daily basis, even with remote learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Flex Academy. It is either Lucas Carter or Dominic Pennington.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome, Lucas.
Yes, I believe Dominic is the one presenting tonight.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Good evening, Dr. Webb, members of the board, cabinet, and community guests. My name is Dominic Pennington, and I am here representing Vancouver Flex Academy. This month's prompt question was, how does your school build leadership qualities among all students? When hearing this prompt, my mind immediately went to ASB. In ASB, the students are in charge of planning school events such as prom, smaller fundraisers, and blood drives. For example, ASB is currently working with the American Heart Association on a service learning project known as the American Heart Challenge. Playing a service learning project like this allows students to not only develop leadership skills like communication, responsibility, creativity, and feedback, but to also allow those students who already have these leadership skills to practice and build upon them. Flex works hard to incorporate leadership qualities within the classroom. Each lesson and assignment provides opportunity to improve and gain those qualities, as well as putting those qualities into practice. Events such as financial fairs and college fairs help to build a student's communication, one of the most important skills needed as a leader, by showing them how to physically and verbally communicate properly while in the formal setting. Many of the students who enter Flex already have strong leadership qualities, but could use more practice or confidence in one or another. That's where fellow students come in. Classmates can help others who are having trouble building upon their own leadership qualities, whether that's directly by giving feedback, another important leadership skill, or indirectly by using their skills that they learned in a situation that calls for it and inspiring those who require more practice. Though Flex is a small school and doesn't have as many opportunities as the bigger high schools, we still work hard and try our best to make sure the students who graduate are equipped with the necessary skills to not only survive, but to thrive in the adult world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. That is it for our student presentations. Thank you to all the students. That was really great to hear the great leadership work at our schools. You did a great job. Next up is our audience participation portion of the evening. We have several speakers lined up tonight. If you are signed up to speak, please make sure that your name in the Zoom is how you signed up to speak so we can easily promote you. Citizen comments is the time in our meeting where the board and administrative staff like to hear comments from the public. Because most matters require fact-finding and review, the board is not able to respond to any public comments made at this time. Additionally, the state's Open Public Meetings Act restricts deliberations on topics that have not been placed on the publicly noticed agenda in advance. If follow-up action is necessary, the board will ask the superintendent to work with the administrative staff to consider the information and respond accordingly. Speakers are expected to be respectful. Personnel complaints and personal attacks are not permitted. The board asks that personnel complaints be submitted in writing. Speakers will be promoted to panelists as I call their name. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. If you hear a chime, please conclude your remarks. If you have materials or additional comments you would like the board to review, please submit those to vpsboard.directors@vansd.org. That information will be shared with the superintendent and board. The board appreciates, listens, and cares about the broad range of perspectives in our community. We thank you for your comments. Our first citizen tonight is Sebastian Charbonneau.
There we are. Good evening.
Welcome.
My name is Sebastian Charbonneau, and I reside at 1310 Northwest 46th Street in Vancouver. I wanted to speak to the board tonight regarding some of the ongoing challenges that our families had with online learning this school year. This pandemic has meant that students, parents, educators, and administrators have all been forced to build an airplane in flight, so to speak. However, in my opinion, the district has not kept up with the high standards for education necessary for children to succeed. Although I applaud the moves of the district to return children to the classroom, the overall cut in instructional time has had severe, serious, and deleterious effects on students' educations. My children attend Franklin Elementary, where now on Wednesdays, their instructional time is roughly only 1 hour of face-to-face online instruction, with the remainder of that time being dedicated to offline learning. And most of that time online is spent just doing check-ins in the morning. So according to OSPI, the district must provide over 1,000 hours of instructional time over the 180-day school year for elementary age students, which worked out to be about 5.5 hours per day. But couching the bulk of Wednesdays as asynchronous is synonymous with putting kids in study hall. And frankly, it's naive to think that a 5, 6, or 7-year-old will be successful in meeting learning targets in nearly 5 hours of independent study. Essentially, eliminating a full day a week of direct instructional time accounts for nearly 20% of what is mandated by the state. So my questions to the board now are, how can the district justify this obvious cut in student learning time? And does the district intend on applying for a waiver from the state for these reduced services? Additionally, other liberties have been taken which would not have been allowed in pre-pandemic times. These, again, have had negative effects on student learning, and they include teachers taking part of the day off, perhaps the morning off, and converting the learning to asynchronous rather than having a substitute, as would have been an obvious and standard practice in pre-COVID days, or the combining of classes online with the student-to-teacher ratio that is well over district guidelines. We've experienced between sometimes 40 and up to 80 children in one Zoom class. The burdens of this pandemic on working parents have been made much more complicated by the unattainable expectations set forth by the district. The emphasis on asynchronous learning on 2 full-time working parents, such as myself and my wife, is not just difficult, but it's impossible to meet. And I can only imagine how much greater the burden on single-parent households is. The hodgepodge of online learning platforms that my family has to navigate daily to find and turn in assignments, rather than the single learning platform we were promised at the beginning of the year, has also contributed to these challenges. Sadly, I feel that the goodwill that parents felt for teachers in schools at the beginning of the pandemic in the spring, when people realized how challenging it actually is to educate children, has now largely been squandered by poor planning, confusing messaging, and inconsistency in instructional standards. As a former educator myself and employee of Vancouver Public Schools, I've witnessed how great education can lead to successful student and productive citizens. And I simply just ask that those standards continue to be upheld.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you for your consideration of my comments. Thank you.
Next up, we have Jennifer Brooks.
Sorry, apparently my video was off. Good evening to all in attendance tonight. My name is Jennifer Brooks. I'm a mother. My address is 7507 Northwest 16th Avenue, Vancouver, Washington, 98665. I am a mother to 2 students who are currently a part of the Vancouver School District. I specifically want to bring up a concern for my middle schooler. It is my understanding that when middle school goes in person, the students will be with their current teachers, but further split into 2 groups that the teachers will teach the exact same lesson plan to during their in-person learning. So for math, hypothetically speaking, the lessons on exponents would be taught to group A on Monday and Tuesday, and then group B on Thursday and Friday. I think this would be a waste of resources and time. I think a better idea would be that the teacher continues to run a Zoom class during the in-person learning, because otherwise we are reducing the interaction for the teachers to the students to 1 day a week. Currently, middle schoolers have Monday and Thursday class with the teachers, and then Tuesday and Friday class with the teachers, and Wednesday is completely asynchronous, except for a handful of classes. I think that reducing the amount of actual one-on-one time with the teachers would be a detriment to the kids that have to stay home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, we have Heather Lindberg.
Good evening. My name is Heather Lindberg, 512 Northeast 106th Street, 98685. I'm a mom to 2 kids in Vancouver Public Schools, a 5th grader and an 8th grader. When the 5th grader, we struggled with the elementary decision whether or not to send our 5th grader back. We felt sort of like we had to because of the relationship she had with her teacher, but then when her teacher ended up being the distance learning teacher, we were able to have the best of both worlds. She's staying home, but still gets to keep her teacher. I'm concerned that my middle schooler and high schoolers in this district will not have similar options. There are some questions that we absolutely have to answer about remote learning while in hybrid. The first is, how are remote students going to maintain their current levels of direct instruction, or even similar or near the same levels of direct instruction? Well, students who are identified as having issues and are currently getting those direct instructions are currently being helped in schools right now, are they going to gain or lose in-person instruction time with these new guidelines? How are teachers with health concerns being accommodated for in this new system? Do we have literally the bandwidth to have teachers doing live streaming from the schools? How much instructional time is going to be lost by all students? It seems like about 50% instructional lost for students in person, and probably even more for students who stay remote during the hybrid. And most importantly, who are we doing this for? Who are we opening these schools for? I'm really concerned about the only place where I've seen a real solid parent survey on this issue, which came out of Chicago, which showed that the students who were most advantaged were the ones who parents were planning on sending their kids back, while those who were least advantaged were not planning to send their kids back. And I worry that is going to further the divide in our district. I know that my kids are going to be fine at the end of the day, that we can help them. They have a parent at home get through this remote instruction, but I worry about their teachers, and I worry about their classmates, and I worry about our community as we go forward. And I hope that some of these questions get answered tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Next, we have Barbara Marshall.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me have this opportunity to speak to you.
I live at 14501 Northeast 8th Court here in Vancouver, Washington. I come to you with 13 years of educational experience, working in different areas: board service, special needs, high risk, advanced placement, and also as a mother of 3 children, the youngest of which is a kindergartner who I have not been able to send to school because of the risks and the danger of coronavirus. He is receiving some special needs learning, and so I have experienced the challenges firsthand of online learning. I am very concerned about moving to a hybrid model. I personally know 6 people who have died of COVID. I know many who are first and second removed from me that I didn't know personally as well. One of those was a teenager in perfect health. Only 4 of those people had minor pre-existing conditions, and 2 are long haulers who will need around-the-clock nursing care for the rest of their lives and have lost everything and their livelihood. We don't even know the risks to children yet, and every day the case count for children is going up. So I am very concerned about that risk factor of exposures. I feel like teachers have been thrown under the bus, and they have become the enemy because people are frustrated with online learning and want to get their kids back in school. But the bottom line is they are our kids, and we need to be there for them. And my heart goes out to those parents who are working 2 jobs around the clock and have no help, and their only place to send their kids is school to be safe. And I do think there are solutions that we can come up with to better serve our students as well as those children of special needs or of financial needs in a way that doesn't put our teachers and our students and our community at risk. Teachers also cannot control students' exposure outside of class, and they're going to struggle to control it within the classroom. All of these kids and teachers are not provided N95 masks. And the fact is, very simply, this is an airborne virus that stays in the air for a minimum of 5 hours. So that 90-minute session or 70-minute session that the kids are in the same room, they are all breathing in the same recycled air, and they are all at high risk of exposure. Not to mention that the younger kids and even teenagers touch absolutely everything. And they're going to be sharing common areas, bathrooms, hallways, office, cafeteria, and even outside, and not to mention bus drivers and bus exposure. In my mind, there are just far too many uncontrollable risk factors to put our teachers, our students, their families, the faculty, and overall our community at risk. That doesn't even address how heavy the nurses and doctors have been working around the clock. I don't want us to keep repeating our mistakes just due to frustration. There are solutions to educating our children that we haven't explored yet, and I think we need to look further afield instead of trying to keep shoving something in a box that doesn't fit. The virus is mutating far too fast. The vaccines do not stop.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm sorry.
Thank you for hearing me. I'm sorry.
No worries. You can email your comments to the board.
I will.
Feel free.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, we have Megan Stempin. Stemping.
Hi, you got my name right the first time. My name is Megan Stempin. I live at 5026 Northeast 9th Avenue in Portland, Oregon. Thank you for hearing me out tonight. I come to Vancouver with 4 years of experience working in 2 other school districts in 2 other states. Currently, I am a student teacher at McLaughlin Middle School through Pacific University in Forest Grove, Oregon. Because I attend Pacific University, I am privileged to have 2 firsthand student teaching experiences, 1 on each side of the river. What I am seeing in Vancouver is deeply concerning to me. When it comes to reopening middle schools for hybrid instruction, there has been 0 regard for student teachers. Under the current plan, there is no formalized way for student teachers to opt out of going to our assigned buildings. My paid colleagues have the ability to take leave off, but I don't get paid, so I can't take leave. And when I talk to my program, they say, follow district guidelines. There's no district guidelines to follow. In fact, I don't get paid and I have to pay to be here. It costs me about $3,000 to be able to student teach. If I don't pay the money, I can't student teach and I can't get my license. equity issues aside, imagine you're me. You pay that money for access to student teaching to do what you want to do. And then in a global pandemic, there are no guidelines for you to follow in a time when everything should be spelled out to the letter so that everyone knows what's going on. If student teachers are required to teach in person, that should be clearly communicated to us. If for some reason or some way we are able to opt out of going in person, that does not require us taking leave we can't take, that should also be clearly communicated to us, because as it stands, we don't know. It's a big question mark, and that adds a lot of stress to an already stressful situation for us, particularly those of us who are currently in graduate school. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Megan. Next, we have Kelly McCurdy.
Hello. Oops. Hello, I'm Kelly McCurdy, and I've been a teacher for 6 years in 2 Title I buildings in Washington, the last here at VPS, and I'm here to speak about the reopening of secondary schools for the hybrid plan. The plan for class transitions in my building as of right now is business as usual plus sanitizing our room. The reality of the objective inability to socially distance in the hallway has been blatantly acknowledged by my building administrators and justified as the time in the hallway crowds is less than 15 consecutive minutes. But at a minimum, our roaming teachers with no classroom of their own will be moving through this crowd of students multiple times a day and have been ignored when considering this particular challenge. My building is a fantastic one, but it is a challenging one in which to be a substitute in a good year, and to the point where many of us teachers can expect to sell our prep period multiple times a week during peak need to simply cover the classes of our absent colleagues. And this will be dramatically increased when we return to school in just a few weeks. I do not plan on utilizing my prep period as a consistently available time to plan curriculum nor provide feedback to students. Comorbidly, my students who opt to remain in full remote learning will be stripped of their instruction time with me. I can provide quality asynchronous content, but I cannot teach students in person and live streaming at home. And this solution to the problem of teacher contact and remote learning is lip service, and it goes against my training and my success as a distinguished educator in this district. And to echo Heather Lindberg from earlier, a previous speaker, this will increase the lag for our students furthest from educational justice. And even if families did know all of these overlooked details that we're trying to call attention to, many I don't have time to mention, they don't have equitable access to communicate their plans for the less than 2 weeks away start to secondary ed. I've hosted devoted class time today and throughout the past week to help students draft emails from their student iPads to faculty, in addition to the ELL staff that has been calling families by the dozens to communicate the situation to them and take down their families' plans. That time that should have been used educating these students. And our district has allowed a false dichotomy to take over the public conversation. Schools are either open or they're closed. I'm either working for students or I'm not. And the people at the demonstrations and making demands on social media to open Vancouver public schools have been lied to, because schools are open. The populations for whom it's the most consequential and safe are currently learning and building. Quality instruction is also being taught remotely. And I'm dismayed that I haven't seen a single acknowledgement about the real physical differences between a 5-year-old in an elementary classroom and an 18-year-old in a high school classroom. These realities are being ignored, widening the gap between all of us. And I'd like to conclude with a note on the professionalism of my field. I found out about this plan to return to schools in a tweet that's still published with incorrect dates. We have people in my building who are fearful for their lives, if not their livelihood. And my district chose an evening social media post to inform the few of us staffers who even follow social media to disseminate this information among ourselves before formal communication was released the next day. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next, we have Bethany Rivard.
Hello. Good evening, school board directors, Dr. Webb, cabinet members, and community guests. My name is Bethany Rivard, and my address is 2911 Northeast 183rd Court, Vancouver 98682. Thank you for this opportunity to share some comments and concerns I have around secondary schools openings. I'm the parent of 2 middle school children, and I've been a teacher at Fort Vancouver High School for the past 15 years. There is nothing I love more than being in the classroom with my students, but I also have some concerns about safety for in-person learning. According to the Yale School of Public Health guidance for reopening schools, poorly ventilated indoor spaces can lead to increased levels of disease transmission. This is concerning to me because based on my experience in my own classroom, the ventilation is and has been very poor. Last year, for example, I frequently had to take my classes to other spaces in our building to teach because they could not focus due to the air stagnation and dampness in my room. There are windows, but they do not open, which is the case for most classrooms in my building. The response I received to my question about ventilation in my building was that we have a consultant looking into it and that we can request a doorstop from janitorial staff to prop open our doors. However, many doors do not lead to fresh air outside, but rather to community areas right outside our classroom. My question is, how do we know if the air inside our classrooms is safe and being circulated, especially with the history of poor circulation already present pre-COVID? In addition, the guidelines for contact tracing only require that people who spend more than 15 minutes closer than 6 feet are notified. If there is an infected person in a classroom with poor ventilation, by definition, the class or teachers would not be notified, but they may be at increased risk, especially with a more transmittable virus becoming the dominant strain by the day. Another question I have is around our testing strategy. Are we randomly testing students and staff? How robust is our testing strategy? The Washington Department of Health states that school administrators may consider a higher priority for testing in schools that have populations experiencing a disproportionate burden of cases and severe disease. This includes schools with moderate or large populations of racial and ethnic groups that have experienced higher rates of COVID-19 relative to population size. The report states that in Washington, data shows that communities of color are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. Native, Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and Hispanic populations have the highest age-adjusted confirmed or probable cases. The demographics of Fort Vancouver High School are 55.3% students of color, with Hispanic students at 44.7%. We need to be mindful that we are not contributing to community spread in the Fort neighborhood. If this district is comfortable with sending back teachers and older students without having the opportunity to get vaccinated, then proper ventilation, random and frequent testing, and robust contact tracing are absolutely necessary for both students and staff to go back to school safely. For the sake of my colleagues, my students, and the people in our community, I hope that the school board and administration rely on best practices for safe reopenings as we move forward. Thank you again for this opportunity to share questions and concerns.
Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you.
Last, we have Louisa Childers.
There we go. Good evening, I'm Louisa Childers. My address is 6510 Louisiana Drive, Vancouver 98661. I'm the mother of a preschooler in the special ed program and a second grader, both of which are on their second teacher this year due to COVID-related leave and reassignment. They've had many changes in schedules this year, not exactly what I would describe as consistency. And soon one of the subs will be transitioning to maternity leave. I'd like to take a moment right now to commend building principals for their hard work in attempting to meet the varying needs of students, parents, and staff with what appears to be limited tools and ever-changing requirements. I see you and I hope you're being adequately supported. I'm also a teacher at Geyser Middle School. As we prepare to move forward with the expansion of hybrid learning, we still have logistical changes happening on a daily basis. There's a huge concern over whether we'll have enough staff and sub coverage. Before the pandemic, as I'm sure you are well aware, teachers often lost planning periods to covering classrooms without substitutes. This was happening even though many teachers would come to school when they were experiencing what we now call Class A and Class B symptoms. I'm concerned about the increase in exposure I will face in covering another group of students and the loss of time to plan for the need of students in person, and additionally, those in fully remote learning. It is especially concerning as it seems it'll be quite a while before there is a vaccine available to me. Hybrid learning also brings changes to our schedule that results in a loss of 100 minutes per week with me for my in-person students and much more for those remaining in full remote learning, not including loss to transition time with added sanitizing protocols between each group. During this time, communication is so important, but there are many ways in which we are falling short. I'm concerned that the majority of communication to families during this transition has been via email. This presents a big challenge for many families, especially those speakers of other languages. Several of my students' families currently have no email contact available. Their choices matter, and they need sufficient information to discern what is best for their families. Lastly, there has been ongoing concern over air quality in buildings. In the most recent issue of Inside Vancouver Public Schools, Alki, Chinook, Geyser, Hudson's Bay, and Skyview are all listed as having upcoming HVAC and air conditioning improvements pending. And Jason Lee and Hazel Dell have HVAC and air conditioning improvements currently underway. Are the systems we have adequate? There are many other concerns that have been reflected by the other speakers tonight. Thank you for listening to mine. I hope that future plans address communication with families, consistency, and class time for students, and are supportive of staff needs and provide safety for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Louisa. We have two additional people that I did not have on my list. I apologize. We have Aaron Childers, excuse me.
Hi, good evening. I'm just a father of three, and my wife's a teacher as well. So, I understand that this remote learning is not the best system of all. I mean, we see kids struggling. I can see my kids struggling too as well. But the thing about it is, we've kind of established something. It's what kids they thrive on consistency, and I feel like we're shifting gears, and the school year is almost nearly coming to an end. We've got vaccines coming out, and I just don't quite understand the push to try and target it right now to come back to school. I've heard from other parents on tonight that we've actually reduced our one-to-one teaching through this with the students, and it just feels like the timing is not, it's not now. Why I don't understand the push to move to hybrid now. We've got vaccines and we're so close. We've been diligent here at our house to try and stay home and kind of follow the guidelines put before us to stay within your family circle and limit your exposure to others, and even at my work we're really diligent about not exposing each other, and then here we are, we're trying to being forced to well, for me, I've got a wife who's a teacher, and she's being made to make a choice to put our family at risk, or take a leave of absence. Just doesn't make sense for me, and I'm sure others, to force this. It's kind of like trying to feed a rectangular block into a circle space. It just doesn't work. So I'm not opposed to going to hybrid later, but why right now? Why can't we wait and make sure our teachers get vaccinated and address the air quality in the rooms, and then try and target at least next upcoming school year? I just thank you for the time. I just kind of question what's the real motive to being pushed to start hybrid now? Thank you. Oh, my address is 6510 Louisiana Drive, Vancouver, Washington, and my name is Aaron Childers. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Next, we have Carrie Von Ostren.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Van Ostren. My address is 2907 East 24th Street, 98661. Grateful for the opportunity to address the community, school board directors, and VPS admin alike. I am local president for the Vancouver EA and a proud educator associated with VPS, and look forward to sharing some data with you based on feedback from a number of VEA members in a recent survey to reiterate some of the ongoing concerns with logistics and what we understood might have been a longer runway without some of those pieces buttoned up. So hearing back from nearly 900 of our VEA members, 61% of them communicated a lack or strong lack of confidence in the district's ability to comply with safety guidelines and report safety issues to the staff that are impacted. Among several items noted, 75% of those folks indicated a strong lack of confidence in the contact tracing process. And while we're encouraged to see a step in the right direction surrounding the dashboard that VPS recently released, ongoing concerns remain. In particular, when we filtered those responses to those who are already serving on site among special educators, elementary educators, and categorical staff as well, still 50% of them communicated a similar lack or strong lack of confidence in the district's ability to comply with those guidelines and reporting expectations as well. The ability to 6-foot distance and sufficient time, as was alluded to in a previous presenter, to sanitize in between groups of students at the secondary level in particular remain high areas of concern without sufficient planning or articulation as to how those might be remedied. We do recognize that colleagues, students, and COVID site coordinators who are building administrators at each respective building need to be held accountable for those safety protocols. But based on some of that additional survey data, we received indication from 199 secondary educators across middle school and high school who anticipate or plan to request either an alternate assignment, which will likely be few and far between, or take leave, and some even indicated their plans to resign their position altogether, in particular based on the absence of vaccination widespread across our professional group. We're already tapping into the current VPS subpool, which is oftentimes shared with local districts as the same staff are enrolled in, or rather hired district to district. And we're already struggling to cover the need for substitute coverage in our elementary buildings and other locations, whether special education related or otherwise, creating in some cases a daily scramble at the elementary level already. We have strong concerns around the actual capacity from a personnel standpoint as to whether or not we can sustain ongoing expansion to on-site learning, because it's already taking a toll on the students and staff at the elementary level and within special education program. Again, appreciate the delay after logistics were fumbled in regards to a survey and over promises to families before collaborating with labor partners. There are too many loose ends at this stage for us to feel truly confident we are providing students and staff what they deserve.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Thank you to all who shared tonight. We are moving on to the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve? It is for, it looks like 7 meetings.
I'll make the motion to approve the minute.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. I will go through and vote. Tracy Barrows.
Approve.
Kathy Decker.
Approve.
Wendy Smith.
Approve.
And I also approve. Thank you. Next up, we have our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
I motion.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, we will move forward with the vote. Tracy Barrows.
Approve.
Kathy Decker.
Approve.
Wendy Smith.
Approve.
Okay, and I also approve. Moving on to regular business. We have a recommendation to conduct a first reading to adopt revised policy 2025, copyright compliance and license to publish in the 2000 series instruction.
Madam President, you do have two first readings of policy revisions. These were reviewed at your January board workshop. The first item, as a result of the triennial review, staff recommends updates and clarifications to existing policy language. Additionally, new provisions are added for the performance or display of copyrighted materials in an online or instructional setting. And again, unless you have questions or comments, we'll waive the reading and bring this back for board action on March 8th.
Yes, that's fine. And the recommendation to conduct a first reading to adopt new policy 6225, use of electronic signature in the 6000 series management support.
Effective June 11th, 2020, the Uniform Electronic Transaction Act authorized the use of electronic signatures by local agencies, including school districts. The UETA repeals and replaces RCW Chapter 19.360. The UETA allows districts to use an electronic signature with the same legal effect or force as a traditional signature, unless a separate state or federal law specifically requires a traditional signature. The district must adopt a policy describing the type of electronic signature allowed and the manner and format for electronic signatures. The proposed new policy and procedure satisfies these legal requirements and provides guidance for district employees on the use of electronic signatures. And again, unless you've got questions or comments, we'll waive the reading and bring this back for board action on March 8th.
Are there any questions? Okay. Moving on to the recommendation to approve purchase agreement 2021-002 between the Vancouver School District and LSW Architects PC, Vancouver, Washington for architectural engineering services at Higgins Bowl.
An agreement for architectural and engineering services with LSW Architects is recommended for the structural improvements of the existing stadium, the addition of a team room facility, and a 6-lane track at Higgins Bowl. The project is part of the 2017 bond program. It's a recommendation that the Board of Directors approve an agreement with LSW Architects for architectural engineering and other related services in the amount of $700,000 for basic services and $424,696 for additional services, if required, for a total amount of $1,124,696 plus Washington state sales tax, and authorize the superintendent to execute the agreement.
Do I have a motion to approve?
This is Kathy. I'll motion to approve.
Okay,
And I'll second. This is Tracy.
thank you. Okay, is there any questions? Okay, we will go ahead and vote. Tracy Barrows.
Approve.
Kathy Decker.
Approve.
Wendy Smith.
Approve.
And I also approve. Next on our agenda is the superintendent's and board of directors report. We are doing a secondary or grade 6 through 8 reopening update. I will turn it over to superintendent. I just want to thank everyone in advance. We asked just last week if we could get an update, so I appreciate all of the effort that went into putting this presentation together and keeping everyone, ourselves and the community, informed on all the work that's going on. So I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Kyle. Just a quick update. Case counts per 100,000 over the past 14 days were released late yesterday in Clark County. The numbers continue to demonstrate a declining trend at a peak on January 18th at 473.7 cases per 100,000. As of yesterday afternoon, cases declined to 262.2 cases per 100,000. I have Jim and other members of the team here to provide a quick update on the 6-8 reopening plan. Jim?
Thank you, Dr. Webb. Good evening, everyone. This evening, we are following up on a few questions and points of clarification relative to secondary hybrid learning planning. Bell schedules for each middle school and high school have been distributed to each building principal and building staff for their input. Each middle school principal has also communicated their specific building schedule to their community as of today. Additionally, we expect these schedules to be posted on the VPS website shortly. The priority in these schedules is to create maximum in-person instructional time while ensuring safety protocols can be implemented with fidelity. For example, 3 lunches are in place at virtually all secondary buildings to ensure there is ample space to ensure social distancing is in place. At each of the comprehensive high schools, block scheduling has created 3 90-minute class periods per day that limit transitions and affords the aforementioned 3 lunches. I previously pointed out the unique challenges at Itech and VSAA that Itech and VSAA face in transitioning a 6-12 grade system to hybrid learning. Essentially, both Itech and VSAA will implement their hybrid schedule on February 22nd, when 6th grade students are welcomed into the building. However, 7th through 12th graders will remain in remote learning until their identified grade levels begin hybrid learning. For instance, 7th and 8th grade students will be served in remote the week of February 22nd, and then will begin hybrid learning on March 1st. In this model, teachers will have full discretion to serve students utilizing both live and non-live Canvas-based strategies for those students who are still in the remote mode. Both principals are working with their staffs to minimize disruptions to student learning while transitioning their whole building to hybrid learning. This does transition us nicely into the instructional model delivery utilized at the secondary level. As shared 2 weeks ago at our previous meeting, the grade level and content endorsement requirements at the secondary level prohibits scaling up of the instructional model utilized at the elementary school level. Simply put, we are not able to designate teachers as being either in-person or remote learning. As the board is aware, student face-to-face time with their teachers is an equity priority. Additionally, this would alleviate some workload concerns as teachers work tirelessly to serve kids. Given that this model does not scale up at the secondary level, we strongly encourage teachers to continue to utilize Zoom technology to serve remote students in a live instructional experience. This provides an equitable learning experience for all students while we're reducing the need for multiple lesson plans, utilizing instructional practice and technology in place since the start of the school year. To support all of our staffs in the ability to be live and in the moment with our remote students, Christina Ironmonger will illustrate the already implemented and ongoing professional development and instructional technology available to staff. Christina?
Thank you, Jim. Just to refresh our memories about some of the initiatives that we've undertaken to make sure that we are building our expertise in our community. So starting in August, we offered a Canvas course that was required for all teachers, and that included topics around classroom technology, Zoom, ClassLink, that Canvas landing page, and the new teacher laptop. And that information is still available to teachers today if they want to refresh their memories. Also in August, we did new educator training, which was inclusive of technology training for VPS equipment and the resources available. We also offered optional technology training around Canvas Basics, Canvas Advanced, WeVideo, G Suite, recording options, and some applications like Cami and Scribble. On August 20th, our teachers received a copy of the Distant Learning Playbook, Grades K-12, Teaching for Engagement and Impact in Any Setting. And on August 26th and 27th, engage in some professional learning around closing persistent opportunity gaps, social emotional learning, and that distance learning playbook. In October, we offered a course called Engaging Students in Remote and Hybrid Learning. This was optional, but a number of our teachers took advantage of that course as well. And we also offered 2-hour training for paraeducators on Zoom and iPad support. In November, we offered 2-hour training specifically for substitute teachers by the DLCs and created a substitute website and have included now some training on our technology for substitutes loaded in their Safe Schools platform as part of their onboarding process. Our DLCs have been offering ongoing support Zoom sessions that are open to all that are interested with the ability to do breakout rooms to give more refined support as needed. And we've updated our resources on our teacher website. In February, our middle school and high schools are or will be receiving a presentation from the DLCs that will include what live streaming is and is not, basic and enhanced live streaming setups, notice of the support sessions that the DLCs are offering, some additional helpful resources and links to our WeLearn website and back to that August training I mentioned before. And the DLCs will be providing 2 times a day some office Zoom hours that will be advertised. Tomorrow, February 10th, there'll be a live Zoom support session from 12 to 3 for any teacher that is interested. And of course, ongoing in-person support for setup or troubleshooting from our DLCs, our building technology support specialists, and our TLs as well, who are a very valuable resource and have been with us on this journey the whole way. In process, so that's up to now, in process to support a continuation of our standard classroom technology, we are moving forward with an add to that. We will be adding swivels, and swivels are robotic tracking systems so that when a teacher moves around the classroom, it will track that teacher to hopefully make some of the challenges of remote teaching and learning easier. We will also offer training on the swivels. We are in process of ordering them. We will be at the mercy of shipping, but as soon as they come in, we will make sure our teachers are trained. They're very easy to use, but we will offer some training. So that sort of rounds out our continuation of trying to build our expertise and our comfort with the technology as we move forward.
Are there questions?
You want questions now?
Yeah, Kyle, when she chatted with us last week, had asked for the short update, and so that's what we've provided related to the key questions that had surfaced a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for the presentations. That was helpful. I will ask, I think we all have a few questions. So, Kathy, do you want to go first?
So the first thing that came to mind, so the live streaming versus Zooming. So Jim, you said continue the Zooming, and then Christina, you said live streaming. Could somebody help me out understanding? So what are our secondary teachers going to be asked to do in the classroom?
So I will answer live streaming versus Zooming. Zooming is live streaming. So I think we use those interchangeably. The expectations, I'll turn that over to Jim or Mike.
Okay. So Jim, is that what you're, so when you say Zooming, you mean the live streaming through Zoom?
Essentially, yes. You'd be live streaming, utilizing the Zoom technology in person at the time. Correct.
So obviously there are a number of teachers that are of my age and their a level of technology comfort is probably about where mine is. So I appreciate that you are offering so much training, and I'm hoping that they will have that easy access, Christina, like you've said, to the DLCs. I know those people have just worked their whatever off, and so I appreciate that they're still going to be there, but I know that there is, I have heard there's that level of discomfort, and it definitely cuts right to the age gap, really. So thank you. The one that I just cannot get over, and this probably goes to Kathy Everidge, I am still very concerned that we actually have enough people to teach these classes once we go hybrid. And if we don't have them, that we have enough people to cover them. So, I mean, where are the numbers? Do we have those numbers of who's taking leave and who's staying and how we're going to cover them? All of that. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay, Kathy. Sorry, I thought you were done. So what the middle school principals have done is they've sent a survey out to their class, each of their teachers. We've asked them if they need to have leave, if they would like to be considered for an accommodation. And then that information has just being collected. It's being sent to human resources. Along with that is a kind of an overall list, so we know who they are. We'll be able to know what their kind of courses they're teaching, because the principals will also be sending their updated Excel staffing sheet that says where they've been able to put their teachers, where they also may have openings for like a long-term sub need. But first and foremost, what principals will do at the middle school level, just starting about them right now because they're next on deck, is they will look at their staffing, Kathy, just like elementary principals did, to see do we have some people who are not involved in instruction with kids, where we may be able to have that person cover a class so a teacher can stream in remotely if possible. So we're going to be as creative as we can to look at flexible options. And when we can't do that, we will look at other staff that we have available in the district that are not currently instructionally involved and look at moving folks in. But we also will look at our long-term sub pool. We had 195 subs that we have on our docket. Now, not all those folks may be comfortable with that. So we put out postcards and ask people to please let us know if they would like to. We've been calling all the elementary subs. We did that already. And we're doing that with our secondary. So once all that information is compiled, and I'm meeting with my team tomorrow morning and beginning to look at the information we're getting from middle schools, what we'll do is then I need to have a conversation with my supervisors to say, hey, here's where we're at. This is where I think I'm highly confident we're in a good place, or I've got some really concerns. So all that's being pulled together. I don't have the numbers for the board at this time, but we are actively working on that with my team and I.
Great. And I love the idea of perhaps having it, for some of our specialists that we don't have enough of in the district, having them do the Zooming into the classroom with some sort of supervision, adult supervision. And I think that will definitely help quite a bit, at least relieve my anxiety on this. I know I've brought it up a lot. I am really concerned. So I appreciate that thoroughness. And do you know timeline wise when you'll have an idea as to how this will all shake down?
So I'm going to let, if Jim has that information, when he expected that back from the principals. As soon as I have that, my team and I are collating that immediately and quickly, so that I can cover that information with my supervisors to make sure we review that information. So Jim, do you have a...
Absolutely, Kathy. Ultimately, it's a two-part process in which principals invited staff to have a conversation at the lowest level, being the building level, to see if there was some relief to be had at the building level. The second level is that survey that was sent out that teachers are asked to have filled out and sent in by this Thursday, so that we can begin and finalize the process with HR and find relief.
Okay. And then something that came up was this, that's been coming up, is this overriding concern of being able to properly sanitize between classes. And then also our teachers that don't have like one assigned classroom, that have to move between classrooms. How is that going to affect the safety of everybody involved?
Sure. So first, let's do our best to address the between classes. Obviously, it's a little different at the secondary level, as students have 4, 6, 7 period days and multiple transitions from classes. What we don't have is the ability for our custodial crews to come in and clean classrooms between. Okay, that's important to recognize, because then the responsibility then falls on the people in the classroom, which would be the adult, the teacher, and the kids. What we have said before is that students will come into a classroom as well as teachers. There is hand sanitizer as well as cleaning supplies, so that whether kids are involved in the process or teachers handle it themselves, there is a process involved. Alternately, teachers can set up seating assignments so that students, if you can't get to it at that moment, students are not sitting at the same desk in 2 consecutive class periods. We can attack it from that avenue also. But ultimately, the responsibility will have to be on the adult, the professional in the classroom, who on a day-to-day basis is responsible for the safety and cleanliness of those classrooms. Okay. Secondarily, roving or movement with teachers. Kathy, as a former teacher, you know that there's a finite amount of space in buildings, given a school such as Skyview High School that has, well, there are no doors, first of all, let's be real. I can attest to that, but also finite spaces with a lot of kids in it. Even now with social distancing, principals are actively working to maximize space so teachers don't have to move around. But the reality is there's going to be a little bit of it, and we're going to do our very best. Buildings are mapped out with directional flows, you know, to keep people social distance. We're going to do the absolute best we can, but some of that will not be able to be avoided.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And you've got the lunch, it sounds to me like you've got the lunch worked out. When we had to go from 4 at a table to 2 at a table, there is enough room for everybody.
Yes, absolutely. We have worked diligently at a building level, looked at each of those plans. We think so. Now, if we could ensure that kids will do exactly what we tell them to every time, that would...
Sorry, they're middle schoolers.
Well, an example of that.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. An example of that planning, Kathy, is not only do we have individual chairs identified by students with like a number or letter, they're 6 feet distance. They're also facing the exact same direction, so students aren't facing each other. So, I mean, that's the level of detail we've gotten to.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now. Thanks.
Tracy or Wendy, do you have any questions for our team?
A couple of my questions have been answered. I did have a question about the sub situation, just because I had written down from back in our January meeting, you know, a certain number of certificated subs. The number is slightly different, it sounds like today, but it's still, Kathy, I think you said 195 subs kind of on the docket, but information earlier tonight that Carrie Van Ostren had shared with us in public comments were the intention of 199 secondary teachers intending to either take leave or resign. So that's obviously very concerning that, you know, and I don't know if it'll shake out to be the same, you know, number that will do that, but that's obviously concerning to me that we might not have enough teachers, enough substitutes to cover teachers because there are teachers with health concerns. I'm glad to hear there's a little bit, you know, some creative thinking in terms of teachers possibly being able to teach remotely, because I know at the second or at the elementary level that allowed some of our teachers who had health issues to not have to take leave. They could still teach remotely. So I'm glad that there are some options, but it sounds like there's not kind of, it's all kind of dependent on availability of other people. So that question has already been addressed. I did have a question about, it was brought up earlier too, about the bandwidth, because if we're in the building and all of the teachers are live streaming, so Christina, this might be a question that you can address. What impact is that going to have? Is every teacher in a building going to be able to live stream at the same time? Can our buildings handle that?
Currently, our buildings can, with our plans moving forward. We will want to switch our K20 network over to a 10G bandwidth, and we are in the process of doing that. But currently, we can handle our plans for the near future.
Okay. And then my understanding is the survey, because I know I did have some parents reach out who were concerned that they hadn't yet, they didn't know kind of the bell schedule. They didn't know kind of what was going on, which they needed that information in order to make the decision on for their student. Jim, it sounded like that you said that information went out today or went out this evening. Yes, okay. But the survey is still open until tomorrow? Is that correct?
Yes, tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Okay, because I know, I mean, that I guess that's one of those concerns that I have with things still being finalized in terms of what is remote going to look like, what's the schedule going to look like, and parents having to make the decision for their students. A lot of concerns that I heard from parents is just making that decision without the information. But it sounds like it's kind of all been, at least the bell schedules have been finalized. I think those are most of my questions. So I guess I'll turn over to Wendy if she has anything.
Can I just jump in? I want to, sorry, Wendy, I don't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to piggyback on something that Tracy had asked about, you know, the sub situation and our teacher. We're going to get the survey results back and start compiling that as soon as possible. I'm just wondering, I mean, what is kind of plan B if we don't have the teachers to accommodate? I mean, I'm just thinking through our scenario where, you know, we could have a large portion of our students returning to school, but all of a sudden being forced to have teacher transitions or, you know, substitute teachers who might not have the right exact certifications for the subjects they're teaching. And I think part of the, you know, everybody's or many people in the community are enthusiastic about sending their kids back, but just setting those expectations of what if we don't have the staffing to accommodate and we're 2 weeks away?
Well, obviously, if we don't have sufficient staffing because individuals respond to the survey indicating that they are taking leave, we'll evaluate, as Kathy has indicated, all of the certificated specialist positions here at the central office and out working in school buildings to redeploy that staffing in order to accommodate. If that is insufficient, inclusive of the utilization of our substitute pool, then we'll have to regroup. And that regrouping might be modifying the terms of the hybrid schedule and the reopening plan. But at this point, we've got to get the data, we've got to analyze the data, we've got to take a look at whether or not we've got sufficient subs to cover the leave requests, and then whether or not we've got sufficient CERT staff to redeploy in order to respond to the number of leave requests.
Okay. No, I appreciate that there is kind of that broader perspective on making sure that this is going to work. It's complicated, and it seems like there's lots of lanes moving at once as we're trying to go through this data. Wendy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
No, that's all right. In fact, a lot of my questions have already been asked. So I do have one question, and it was mentioned in public comment, but it was something I've been wondering about for a while. Have there been any discussions about doing random testing in our schools at all?
We have had conversations with OSPI and certainly with the region superintendents. The challenge here is twofold: having sufficient testing access in order to actually execute on that. You may be aware that there are 10 districts in the Puget Sound region who have piloted testing. There are some preliminary reports of that impact, but that was a function of dedicated resources that were brought to bear by an outside agency in order to do that pilot. We're still waiting on the second round of ESSER funding. In the event that that ESSER funding provided enough capacity to respond to the additional investments relative to swivel, the additional investments relative to performing arts mitigation solutions, including large event tents in order to accommodate music rehearsals at our secondary sites, and respond to the entire challenge of our budget shortfall related to the pandemic, both in terms of revenue shortfalls with transportation, revenue shortfall with enrollment, we certainly could make some capital investments in testing if the supply side of the equation were responded to.
All right, thank you for that, Steve. The last thing that I have is, I don't know if it's a question as much as it's a concern or an ongoing concern, and I am well aware of all of the complexities around secondary scheduling. But when we're hearing about like how live streaming might work in the secondary level, the middle schools and the high schools, I'm hearing lots of words like teacher discretion and optional and not language that would guarantee that sort of access. And I understand the challenges around that, and it's an incredibly difficult problem to solve. But my concern continues to persist about equity for our remote only students. But I'm also concerned about the way this information is being communicated with our families. The information that was sent out today was hugely helpful. I was one of those parents that Tracy mentioned that was waiting to see the middle school schedule before I made a final decision for my daughter. So that was really, really important information. And I was really glad to see that it got out in advance of the survey closing. But the descriptions in the information that was sent out, at least the information I received, is pretty unequivocal about remote students being able to access live streaming. And that's not what I'm hearing in the presentation tonight. And so I worry that we're giving families a false impression about what might be available to them or their children in terms of live instruction if they are remote only. So I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just misunderstanding, but it sounds like it's not necessarily a guaranteed thing, that it's being left to the teacher to determine how and how often, or even if they are going to choose to use it. Am I understanding that correctly?
Kathy, can you spend, Kathy Everidge, can you spend a little bit of time talking about conversations today with VEA in terms of trying to reach shared understanding relative to the Zoom video conferencing technology in support of remote learners?
Sure. The Vancouver Educational Association leadership and I have spent the last few days having that discussion around live streaming. The district absolutely highly wanted live streaming, tried to make that a requirement. What we ended up being able to agree upon with the union leadership is that the district will highly encourage that, to the point of we will incentivize it so that those of our teachers who will do the live streaming, which we believe, and we have shared repeatedly, that we believe it is a workload reduction. We believe it's an equity issue for kids for instruction, as well as meets some needs for our kids with social emotional learning. And to incentivize this, we will give our teachers who will engage in live streaming, which we believe is a path forward for our students, we will give them a stipend of $500 to engage in this, to expand on their current use of Zoom, which is live streaming. They're currently doing it. They've been doing it all year. And as Christina shared, we will be providing the resources for additional technology as we move forward. But everybody's trying to look at a balance, I believe. Our labor leaders are trying to look at a balance for pressures on teachers, everything that they have on their plate. The district and the union together are trying to look at our needs of our kids. There is a finite balance. We believe between the work with the union leadership and the district, we got to that balance by incentivizing that for our staff, by providing the stipend. And in this pandemic, there is no perfect answer, is what all of us have found out, but we are really striving to do our very best. And I appreciate what VEA leadership brought to the table to work with us. And we felt it was very collaborative, and we really felt we got to a balance here. And we know people have a lot on their plates. So how do we balance that? And how do we help people, like Kathy said, somebody who may be less competent in their skill sets around technology? How do we help folks? Christina and staff talking about digital learning coaches. How are they going to support those folks who really want to take that journey and expand that skill set? They've been using it, but to expand it more. So we believe together, we are trying to set the stage for people to provide for workload choice for our teachers, professional educators who really know their kids best and can decide what of those instructional tools are going to help kids get across the finish line because they care deeply about their children being successful and their students in their classrooms, as do all of us. And so we think we struck the right chord. We would love to have everybody. This pandemic obviously has taken the toll on everyone. We hope that we have that balance where it will incentivize those people to continue to grow in their skills, to provide more access for kids and live stream that instruction, to take off the workload for our teachers because it is a lot of workload on them, but it also really provides that equity of educational access for all kids. So that's the balance we tried to reach. And I'm really proud of the work that I did with VEA leadership.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you also for the work you have done with VEA. I mean, everybody really appreciates. And obviously, this is something that takes a lot of creative thinking and creative solutions and a lot of collaboration. And so I appreciate that. And Christina, your explanation earlier about the PD and the training that has been and will be available to teachers is also much appreciated. And I think there is, Kathy, you mentioned it a second. I know it because I'm living it too, right? This idea of I got to learn another new thing. I get the initial hesitancy to try to take on another new thing, especially after trying so many new things this year. It's like it's just sometimes it feels like it's going to break you, and I understand all of that, and I appreciate all of that. And like I said, this very well might be the best option that we can come up with. Again, my concern is how it's being communicated with our families, because it's being communicated as if this is what's happening every day. A student or at least twice a week, that remote only student will have access to live instruction for any class period that they would be scheduled to attend if they were in person. That's how it's being written, and that's not necessarily what the reality might be, it sounds like. So we have said again and again how important it is to clearly and accurately communicate with our families, and I feel like we're still not accomplishing that. So that is my, again, the equity concern about access, which I understand everybody's efforts in trying to ensure that equity is happening, but the communication piece, frankly, continues to be a frustration.
Wendy, we'll regroup with the team to review all of the communications that went out today from buildings to ensure that it's uniform and consistent.
If I might, I don't have another question. I just have a positive comment. Kathy, the comments that you just made were inspiring. Thank you. All the positive feedback and just everything positive that you said about everybody that's going through this pandemic. Thank you so much, because sometimes we get so caught up in this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. How are we going to solve this? How are we going to solve? We forget to look at how much we're trying to accomplish with everyone on board. So thank you. That was wonderful.
You bet. Work with good people all the way around.
So most of my questions have been addressed as well. I wanted to just comment, I really appreciated also the professional development update from Christina. I mean, I think this is obviously a very critical part in the next transition that we make, because getting our teachers feeling comfortable with technology and live streaming is, I think, going to make everyone feel better about the situation. Just in light of the potential of having subs, have we, what's the plan for that professional development with, onboarding new substitute teachers? Because that's going to be like a crash course of all the professional development that our educators had in August. and getting up to speed with new students, new materials, and then also live streaming. That's a bit of a burden to jump over. So I just, and there might not be plans necessarily clearly etched out, but just kind of wondering, how we're going to navigate professional development for these subs.
So I did mention that we do have a substitute website developed, and we have for their onboarding some training that's in their Safe Schools modules for the technology that we use, but also want to reiterate that there are TL building teacher librarians there, building technology support specialists there as well, and the DLCs will be available. And there are others. We've been building our internal expertise so we can lean on each other if there are questions that arise in the moment. So I think we'll take care of our substitutes well, but again, if they need anything, they need to reach out to us and we'll address it as fast as we can.
And in the event that we had a need to scale up additional supports, we should have some capacity with ESSER funding to provide either a half-day or full-day training for our subs remotely in order to build greater capacity with the instructional modality.
And Kyle, just so you know, we already did training with many of our subs who we thought would be, who worked with us to be long-term subs. They've already gone through that training with the elementary teachers on live streaming and how to do that. So many of them have already gone through it. We have additional that we are bringing onboarding and training also. So I like hearing if there's additional dollars, we can also do another thing for more subs.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate that there's already kind of that in the queue. In regards to, there's already a lot of really good work going on in the elementary schools. There's teachers that are, making it work and making it happen every day. There's teacher teams that are collaborating in really inspiring ways, working through technology glitches and making it happen. Is there, and you guys have probably thought about this, but just in the knowledge share or best practices that we can kind of level that up from elementary school up to our secondary teachers who are jumping in, just because we do know that we've seen some success and teachers are still learning, but how do we kind of pass that knowledge forward?
Kyle, on tonight, one of the panelists is Andy Meyer, principal at Skyview High School. And I know that he's got a group of teachers that are ultimately kind of playing in this sandbox. Andy, are you still with us?
Yeah, I can
touch base on that.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, we've leveraged a lot of things from the expertise from the elementary level. One of them being meeting with our DLC who has experience kind of helping the elementaries navigate. So being able to see what some of the trouble spots that they initially had so that we can plan for and be prepared for that. We've then been able to, as Jim mentioned, bring a group of teachers together that are doing some support and PD planning for our staff here in our building so we can take those lessons learned at the other levels and be able to apply them in our building. So those have been some big pieces that have been huge. And then just a collaborative culture that we have, being able to reach out to my colleagues that are at the elementary level and be able to have conversations with them. So all of those I feel like are really key elements in helping us be prepared as we scale up to the middle and high school level.
Thank you. No, I think that this is an opportunity to celebrate where we are being successful and really kind of leverage that. I've seen some really great work happening. And so, let's, as much as it's possible. I think my other question is really around just the logistics communication standpoint. February 22nd is rapidly approaching. Everyone knows I'm also a middle school parent like Wendy, and I also could not fill out the survey until I had the bell schedule just due to family logistics. So I'm glad that came out today. It's just, I think we're moving very quickly, and the ability to just make all of the necessary logistical executional decisions, there's a sequence, there's a natural sequence. So thankfully parents have the information now. I'm just worried, what are our survey responses so far? And, are they going to be alarmed that the bell schedule is different than what maybe the Zoom schedule that they're used to? Is there going to be some flexibility or changes? And I'm also interested, I know our elementary schools, we had some schools that had about 30% not respond to the survey. So what's the burden on our secondary staff in order to get that information complete in time for a smooth opening? So I guess I'm kind of curious what the next steps are in working through the remote families versus the in-person families, how we're kind of connecting those dots and moving forward, because we were very rushed with elementary.
So I had a conversation with Christina this morning. I know that the team in CIS is working directly with families. Christina, could you speak to their work? And this is about getting to the families that either haven't responded or didn't get the message. And there's been a lot of follow-up, not only by the schools, but by the team up here to support.
Yes, the team has been making a lot of strides in connecting with parents that, one, perhaps didn't have an email in our system and wanted to connect through text messaging or notifications. They will not know who's responded until the survey closes tomorrow, but then they will divide the students up into the A-B hybrid and work their magic to make sure that the principals get that information as soon as possible, so follow-up can happen for those families that didn't. But we know the elementary survey had a great response rate, but not 100%. So they're trying to get a much higher response rate to reduce that workload on the buildings. But we may need to rely on the buildings to make some outreach for families that have not connected with that survey.
So I am assuming that there's going to be communication going out tomorrow, just final reminders.
Yeah, they do send reminders out, but I can make sure that happens for you, Kyle.
I think a lot of people might have been waiting on that bell schedule. And so just, now that information is out and people can make their decision, I think that might be good because it saves work on the back end, of course. I think that's it for me. I just want to say thank you. It looks like we're moving forward and there's a lot of moving pieces, and I appreciate everyone's effort in juggling all these moving parts to kind of make this happen. And it's going to be exciting when more kids are back in school, that's for sure. Does any other director have thoughts or feedback? Okay. That is it for that. The last item on our agenda is we are recessing to executive session to discuss the performance of a public employee with possible action to follow.
Kyle, can you announce the time you'll be in executive session, the length of time?
We anticipate an hour. And we will check back in if needed.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
things open here.
The board is still in deliberations. We expect another half an hour.